C'est une route qui va quelque part nous emmènera.
Questa strada che va da qualche parte ci porterà. I giardini sarà Omawada, questa strada che va da qualche parte ci porterà. I giardini sarà Omawada, in a cannabis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final day of the conference of the project Water Diplomacy and Culture of Sustainability, the Lake Chad Basin. And today the session today is titled International Organization and the Lake, and we will host an interview with representatives from the international organization conducted by our young fellow Chiara Danese and Simone Rancati. The two interviews has been done with Sonia Koppel, Secretary of the Water Convention at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and with Francesca Di Mauro, Head of Unit Central Africa at DG International Cooperation and Development of the European Commission. Francesca Di Mauro will also be one of the panelists of our final roundtable starting on these same channels at 11:30. We really hope to see all of you, and all of you could join us at the final session.
Welcome everyone to this recorded interview with in English with Dr. Sonia Koppel, that is the Secretary of the Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes, and co-secretary also of the Protocol on Water and Health of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. So, Mrs. Koppel, we can go with the first question. Compared to the other areas covered by the Water Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes, that is serviced by United Nations, what are the most characteristic aspects that distinguish the Lake Chad region, and which are the most difficult steps toward the sustainable management on transboundary waters?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much for this interview today. As you might know, at the global level, more than 60% of freshwater resources are shared by 2 or more countries. And this means they must be managed in cooperation between the riparian countries. And in Africa, the percentage of transboundary waters is even higher. And particularly, one of the hotspots is indeed the Lake Chad Basin region. So the Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes, or in short, the Water Convention, whose secretariat is provided by UNICE, where I work, provides a unique intergovernmental framework under the United Nations to facilitate cooperation on transboundary waters. It has the aim to improve national water governance also, and to prevent and facilitate the resolution of water-related conflicts. It has contributed to making the Pan-European region one of the most advanced with regards to transboundary water cooperation. It has 44 parties, but more than 100 countries worldwide participate in our activities. So originally it was negotiated as a regional instrument. But in 2003, the convention's parties, including, among others, Italy, agreed to amend the treaty to make it possible for any United Nations member state to accede, so to join this instrument. And in 2016, the convention then became officially a global legal framework for transboundary water cooperation, open for all UN member states. And then the first country outside the Pan-European region to join the convention was actually a country from the Lake Chad Basin region, namely Chad, in February 2018. And Chad has often put forward the reinforcement of transboundary water management of the Lake Chad as a key argument for joining the Water Convention. Chad's accession to the Water Convention has therefore shown the importance of the globalization of the convention and also its relevance for the region. Indeed, as you certainly know, or has a lot been discussed during these days of the conference, the Lake Chad Basin is an important source of fresh water that supports more than 45 million people. It is located at the crossroads of Cameroon, Chad, the Central African Republic, Niger, and Nigeria. And it has great potential benefit also, among others, in terms of biodiversity. However, the region is also characterized by the intersection of major security and other social political challenges, which are leading, for example, to a significant migration. The decrease of the rainfall, which is due in part, but not only, to climate change, has a direct impact on the capacity of the resources to meet all the different uses, such as fishing, breeding, agriculture, and others. And this situation is exacerbating the potential tensions among the users. So the challenges are many: conflict prevention, poverty reduction, biodiversity conservation, ecosystem management and ecosystem restoration, drought and flood management, etc. All this can only address in an integrated manner, and it requires a strong collaboration and coordination between the different riparian states. And here I would say that the long-standing involvement of the Lake Chad Basin riparian countries in the Lake Chad Basin Commission deserves to be highlighted and acknowledged. However, cooperation remains an evolving and challenging process. Therefore, the sustainable management of transboundary waters of the Lake Chad requires a continuous effort by the countries in tackling the existing as well as new and pressing challenges.
Yeah.
And the Water Convention can help in this regard.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your brilliant answer. And I can leave the stage now to my colleague Simone that will proceed with the second question.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, in the Lake Chad region, in your opinion, which project have brought the greatest benefits to the area as well as to the UN-Africa relations?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I said already, transboundary water cooperation has the potential to generate many benefits for the countries involved. And we've seen this in basins around the world. It includes, for example, accelerated economic growth, improved well-being, peace, regional integration, enhanced environmental sustainability, and increased political stability. The Water Convention recognizes that legal and institutional frameworks play a key role in ensuring long-term transboundary water cooperation. And also the SDG Sustainable Development Goals recognize this. Legal and institutional frameworks are also decisive to implement the SDG 6 on water and sanitation, and particularly the target 6.5 on integrated water sources management and transboundary cooperation. And I think currently the COVID-19 pandemic is even more so showing the importance of water and including an integrated approach to it. So far, the establishment of the Lake Chad Basin Commission is, in my view, the most important development in the basin and has brought important benefits to the area in terms of fostering cooperation between riparian states. According to the 1964 statute of this commission, the main task of this commission is to ensure efficient use of the basin's waters, to coordinate development, and to assist in the settlement of disputes. Therefore, the commission was set up as a tool to facilitate dialogue and peace, and to assist in the prevention of conflicts over the water resources. It also provides a useful cooperative framework where dialogue and action can be engaged. And as you may know, it also addresses security issues by hosting the multinational joint task force. In April 2012, the Lake Chad Basin Commission also facilitated the adoption of a water charter, which defines the overall regime governing the management of the basin. And this water charter is actually inspired by the principles of the Water Convention, which shows the relevance of the convention for countries which want to strengthen or develop cooperation. Among the issues that this charter is addressing are, for example, water sharing rules between the states and the users, wetlands and groundwater management rules, criteria to review new projects which might impact on the water resources, harmonization of monitoring and communication tools, navigation and transport rules, and much more. While there are many challenges, I would say that the effective implementation of the Lake Chad Water Charter should be a priority, since it can, as I said already, bring significant benefits to the region. Finally, I would like to say that the Water Convention is in close contact also with the Lake Chad Basin Commission and has already supported it, for example, in raising capacity for climate change adaptation and for developing bankable projects for this in shared basins. And finally, the Lake Chad Basin also needs to be seen in the larger context of the Central African region and the African context in general. And here, an important tool, in my view, is the newly adopted Regional Convention for the Prevention and Peaceful Resolution of Conflicts related to the joint management of shared waters, which was developed by the Regional Community of Central African States, the ECAS. And this one was just approved by the heads of state at a summit in August this year. And UNECE, we were involved in the development of this convention in 2016 to 2017.
Thank you for your answer. And now let's pass to the third question, which is within the context of the Lake Chad crisis, how do you think the relationship between the UNECE and the Chad region will evolve in the future? What will be the future development of the convention in this area, in your opinion?
Thank you very much. As I said, the situation in the Lake Chad region is an important concern for the Water Convention and its parties. And the continued and further strengthened cooperation between the countries is a requirement for the sustainable management of the Lake Chad. So the Water Convention, in close cooperation with other key organizations, such as the Lake Chad Basin Commission, also the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, other United Nations agencies, the Economic Community of Central African States, and other relevant organizations can and will continue to support the Lake Chad Basin countries in that respect. And with regard to the Water Convention, the countries can mainly, for example, benefit from the sharing of experience in the framework of the Water Convention. For example, it's different guidance documents on climate change, on water allocation, on developing agreements, on benefits of cooperation, many other areas, but also the other activities of the Water Convention, the approaches and the tools which have been developed over the last 2-3 decades. So in fact, the participation and the implementation of the obligations of the Water Convention can also improve water resources management and water governance at the national level, and can therefore help to achieve the SDG 6. And more in detail, the convention's standards to be applied by the different parties, for example, on the prevention, control, and reduction of pollution, on permitting, on prior licensing of wastewater discharges, the application of biological treatment or other processes to municipal wastewater, and also the application of the ecosystem approach can enhance national systems for water resources management. And this is particularly the case when a country joins the convention officially and also develops an implementation plan and regularly reviews the efforts in implementing the convention. And the different parties are asked indeed to review their implementation and to report on it every 3 years. And then the new party, the Water Convention, is also helping new parties in the development of implementation plans, for example, with the financial support of the European Union under the currently ongoing project promoting accession to the Water Convention, which aims to help the countries in accession and implementation of the Water Convention, and thereby to more peacefully and sustainably manage the water resources. And finally, the convention is actually only and most useful if not only one country, namely now Chad, but also the other neighboring countries would join. And that's why we are very happy that several other countries of the Lake Chad Basin region are in the process of accession, namely Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic. And actually, right after Chad had acceded, we also organized an event in N'Djamena with these different neighboring countries to discuss the concrete steps and help the other countries also to join. So we, at the Secretariat of the Convention, stand ready to accompany the different countries in their accession processes and in the implementation with the support of the other partners in the region, with also the support of the already existing parties of the Water Convention and the general the United Nations systems. Yeah, thank you very much. And I wish a very good discussion at the conference.
Okay, now it's time to close this interview. So I thank you on behalf of the Center for African Studies for your meaningful contribution, which was brilliant, and I wish you a pleasant day.
Welcome back. There is a time for a second interview with Francesca Di Mauro, with a master at the College of Europe and a PhD in economics at the University of Bruxelles. Currently head of unit of Central Africa at DG International Cooperation and Development of the European Commission, where she has a 19 years experience in the external action domain, designing and managing programs for macroeconomic support, public financial management reforms, governance, and accountability.
Welcome everyone to this recorded interview in English with Dr. Francesca Di Mauro, that is the head of unit of Central Africa at DG International Cooperation and Development of the European Commission. So, Dr. Francesca Di Mauro, in 2011, the youth strategy for the security and development in the Sahel was presented among the other regional strategies for Africa. In your opinion, do you think that the Sahel Regional Action Plan that was approved in 2015 to pursue the objectives of the strategy, and which will expire this year, has had good results in your opinion? And how do you think it will evolve over the next 5 years?
Thank you, and good afternoon or good morning to everyone. Thank you for the question. Indeed, I mean, the 2011 EU Sahel strategy was avant-garde, if you want. I mean, this was really the first time that we put together a strategy for those countries. And this is also the first time that we really launched what we call the integrated approach. So in that strategy, you will see that the objective was really to use in a much more integrated manner all our tools, let's say the tools that the EU has at its disposal. And when I talk about EU, it's not just, let's say, the EU institution, but it's EU and its member states, because that's very important. And indeed, integrated approach of what? Of development cooperation, humanitarian aid, but also, diplomatic effort, political dialogue, all of this, together towards the same objective of stabilization. This was clearly needed, in an area so complicated as the Sahel. And it also, it's also testimony to the fact that there are, in fact, many of these Sahel strategies actually proliferated after ours. So now there are around 20 of these strategies. Of course, it also shows the importance that the Sahel has in terms of geopolitical interest, for many actors. What we did indeed with the regional action plan was to invest heavily in the area, in the region, and up to now, if we sum up really everything, we have 4.6 billion euros of aid, of support invested in the region. And it really covers the whole spectrum, from, let's say, resilience or livelihood of the communities, but also reinforcing state presence on the ground, including the security sector presence. Of course, we never fund the lethal equipment, but we do fund, support to the security sector. So this is of course, important in an area where you want to stabilize. Access to basic services, this is also what was absolutely provided. Now, it's true that the result, looking at the impact and looking at what is happening now in the Sahel, it doesn't look like, the situation is not improving. Security situation is deteriorating. Of course, the impact of climate change, and I think this is maybe something that we are more and more realizing, how climate change is impacting on, movement of population, and what does it do to the livelihood. Extremism is rising. So, the idea now is really that we have to reflect again on the strategy. So 2011 is already 9 years ago. So we are really a bit in the middle of a reflection now. And in fact, the question is timely because we want to actually update the strategy. We want to see, what went wrong, what went, what worked. But clearly, one aspect that we identified as being, unsatisfactory, if you want, is the fact that the government ownership of all these processes was insufficient. We loaded with a lot of support, a lot of funds, helping the communities. But if the government at all levels, from national to local level, did not really push for the same type of reforms, for making sure the state presence is there, for making sure that the basic services are delivered in an equitable manner to the population, clearly, we're not achieving what we wanted. So, as I said, the idea is that before the end of the year, we would update the strategy.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
I don't know.
Yeah, I will leave the stage now to my colleague Simone.
Thank you, Dr. Di Mauro, and let's pass to the second question, which is in the Lake Chad area, in your opinion, which projects have brought the greatest benefits to the area, as well as to the EU and Africa relation, and which projects have somehow disappointed the expectation?
Yes, so now if you move to the Lake Chad area, which is, Sahel plus, let's say, Cameroon and, of course, the Chad around Lake Chad. As you well know, it's now, I think, over 10 years that we have the conflict driven by the Boko Haram, by the Islamist movement. And so clearly, this is like almost a concentration of issues, the same challenges that you may find in other Sahel countries around the Lake Chad is, everything is concentrated. You have, again, displacement, you have conflict. So as the moment you have displacement, you also have the livelihoods of the people that are affected. So if you only take, let's say, a security approach by saying you need to stabilize, you need to bring in the army, which we are, of course, supporting with the multinational, joint force. We are supporting it, the MNGTF, the Joint Task Force at the level of the countries to bring security. But this is not enough. So what we want also to bring is, as I said before, also more broadly for the Sahel, support to the livelihood and to the income generation possibility of the communities living around the Lake Chad. Since 2014, we have actually supported the Lake Chad, let's say, area, so around really the Lake Chad, with over 700 million euros, covering agriculture, food security, job creation, but also, of course, security, anti-terrorism, but also basic social services and governance. Basically, what we wanted to do was to strengthen resilience. And here, when we talk about resilience, is both the resilience of the communities, but also resilience of the state. I think one has to remember that this area of the Lake Chad often is an area that has never seen state presence. I mean, the state presence is very minimal. And so if after decades of, let's say, communities not receiving or not seeing the state, the only state they see is the military or the police, this immediately can lead to even more confrontation. So you need to bring also the basic services. You need to show the population that they can trust the state services because they're bringing health, they're bringing education. So this is exactly what we've been trying to do around the Lake Chad. Not easy, but just to give you some example, let's say some positive examples. We have what we call the Borno and Yobe packages on the northeast side of Nigeria. It's over 245 million euros, which is explicitly, let's say, taking a nexus approach. So the nexus, of course, is very prominent, very important here. So humanitarian development and peace nexus, whereby we would have, for example, our DG ECHO coming in immediately with humanitarian, support to the area. Then we would have a more stabilization, for example, of how do you call it? Maybe demobilization of some of these armed groups or some of these criminal, and then combined with development cooperation, which is more medium to long term. So all of this together was this Borno and Yobe package. Around the Lake Chad, another positive example was what we call the Sekou Chad, which was a program of 10 million euro, which was supporting. This was very much a security program, but it was supporting the gendarmerie fluviale, as they call it. So the river, the river police that would really be trained against terrorism, of course, international criminality, and so on. And you have to realize, indeed, that even the security forces in these areas, they are very, weak, and they need a lot of training. They need basic training, let's say, on the security side. But I would also add that they also need a lot of training on the human rights side, on respecting international humanitarian law, respecting human rights, and just basic addressing the population in a manner that will not, put the population again against them, and hence, this is how you get radicalization. But to make sure that the population really was building trust with the security forces. So in fact, we even organized what we call prevention committees, which were made up of police, but also the local chief, the local communities together, to youth, women, to discuss, what kind of security service they were expecting. So that was in Chad. I think those are positive ones. Maybe I have more, in Niger. Also, there was a very, let's say, comprehensive program, which also provided building, housing for the IDPs, for the displaced people. So that, of course, there were a huge amount of IDPs. So you needed also to rebuild the housing for them. But then maybe on the, let's say, more challenging side, of negative side, I think one element was the security itself. I mean, you have to realize that in such an area where you have constantly attacks, by Boko Haram and so on, it is somehow very difficult to implement the project. So you may experience delays, or of course some of the NGOs with whom we work, they find difficult, to continue working. They have to be, repatriated, and sometimes they have to suspend activities. So these are extremely difficult places to implement projects. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is, again, the issue of the security forces, which I think also some NGOs, brought to us, that some of the security forces, they were, abusing of their power. Not, we were funding the security forces, but they were, not always addressing the communities in the right way. And that is why I'm stressing a lot this importance of training them, not just on the operational side, how to combat, how to fight, but also very much how to deal with the population and to ensure the human rights. So this is these are some of the more, issues, more challenging issues. And then again, I would say maybe some would come also later, but then I would say also again the ownership of the authorities, because here you have an area, Lake Chad, which is shared with 4 countries: Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. And the capital of these countries are very far away. I mean, Abuja is very far away from the Lake Chad, so it's very difficult, let's say, for the central authority to really, put their mind when they have a huge country and many other problems. A bit similar for Niger. For Chad, of course, N'Djamena is very close to the Lake Chad. So I think Chad is the country that has really taken up, very seriously. And Cameroon also is at the extreme north of the country. So what we also tried to do was really to work at the sub-national level with the governors of those countries, the governors of those regions, to make sure that they also would take up a bit more ownership of that. So the issue of ownership is again a challenge, I'd say.
Thank you for already introducing the topic of the next question, which is because among the critical dimension of humanitarian intervention, there are coordination issues between the actors. And so can we say that today there is an effective coordination between the states in the region, and that there is an effective coordination between them and international actors? What can be improved?
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I already anticipated a bit, but it is true that this is one of the challenges that we identified to work in the region. As I said already, 4 countries, and also complex countries. Nigeria is also a federal state, so you have, autonomy of the regions to operate, which you don't have in other, in Chad or Cameroon, which is much more centralized. But then also in terms of actors, let's say developmental humanitarian actors, there's a plethora of actors. I mean, there's EU, but you would have all the UN agencies are there. Many EU member states are also there, and so there's a lot of civil society as well. You would have a lot of different civil society that operate. So it's a very kaleidoscope type of context, very complicated. So this is where, indeed, one of the levels that we try to address is the subnational level, because you cannot expect, again, that only from the center, from the capital, this thing will be solved. So political dialogue at subnational level, we've actually tried to push that, to promote that, and we even had specific meetings of the governors, of the 4 governors, promoted by us, for them to talk and to identify, what worked, what was working, what was not working. For example, at some point there were these refugees that were coming from Nigeria into Cameroon. Cameroon was sending them back. Of course, this creates further conflict, further, displacement. So it would be much better if those countries could coordinate a bit more among themselves. And we have offered that, as a platform for that. One aspect, of course, is the role of the Commission. There is a Lake Chad Basin Commission, which is a regional, sub-regional organization. It has no real status, in terms of, the African Union has recognized some regional economic community. There's 8 of them, like COMESA, SADC, etc., several of them. But this is not one of them. I mean, there's a plethora, of course, of this sub-regional organization. And one could say that indeed this is a very weak one. It's very, it does not have the competence, but at the same time, it could really be the place where the coordination takes place. So we have, we believe that we need to strengthen the dialogue with them, but also empower them so that they can become a bit the place for coordination. This, I think, is still work to do, is still, let's say, some way to do. And also among us, let's say EU and member states, at least among us and the member states, we have to coordinate more. Now, I don't know if you've seen, but now going forward, if we're thinking now about the new programming, and already during the COVID crisis, we've engaged, we've launched this, let's say, different approach called Team Europe initiative, which is very much to say that, EU on its own, we cannot act individually, us, France, Italy, Belgium, Spain, etc. But we're much stronger if we can work together. And so with this Team Europe approach, I would say that applied to the Lake Chad, at least a strong coordination among us, EU, member states, would be already a much, a step forward. And then from there, this bloc can then coordinate with the UN agencies, because also among the UN, there are many, many agencies. And then perhaps with some of the other key actors who are there, non-EU, perhaps US, let's see if they get more engaged. But I mean, clearly this is an area that we need to still continue to strengthen. And perhaps another aspect is to strengthen the coordination between civilian and military cooperation. So, now you have the MNGTF, the Multinational Joint Task Force, and then you have the police, the gendarmerie, which are more the internal security forces operating. And the cooperation between the two is also not that ideal. So that cooperation needs to strengthen. They need to exchange information. They need to, to harmonize a bit, the procedure so that it's much more effective. So these are a little bit the various avenues that we are exploring on that. I think more or less this is it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Di Mauro, for your meaningful contribution. On behalf of Center for African Studies, we wish you a pleasant day.
Thank you, and have a good event. Bye-bye.
C'est une route qui va quelque part nous emmènera.
Questa strada che va da qualche parte ci porterà. I giardini che saranno o mawada ina che la messa. Questa strada che va da qualche parte ci porterà. I giardini che saranno o mawada ina che la messa.
In a cannabis, in a cannabis, in a cannabis.